Some of you might not be aware of this, but there was a Final Fantasy Warriors remaster that was scrapped many years ago. It was made by me and The64thGamer, but we didn't really get far. I don't remember why, but I think he got busy, I got busy, and I think none of us was really happy with where the game was going, and so it just ended up basically scrapped. However, a little while ago, I discovered that very game file, the original scrapped game file of the original Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered on my old computer. It was a game file that I thought for a long time was gone forever, but I found it. And so I thought, today, we're gonna dive into that game file and just take a peek around and look at the original scrapped Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered and all the things that it had to offer to the point it got before it was cancelled. Back in 2015, a user named The64thGamer reached out to me. He had experience in 3D, something I had essentially zero experience in, and we decided to go together and remake the first Final Fantasy Warriors game. I'm not sure why the game ended up being named Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered, as this wasn't the original game brushed up to a higher resolution with bug fixes and so on. This was a game built from the ground up, with 3D models, and a story that I don't even remember what it was about, but it was going somewhere strange. This was a complete remake, not a remaster. And as you will see later in this video, this remaster didn't completely die out. In fact, some elements lived on in another Final Fantasy Warriors game. I actually reached out to The64thGamer not too long ago. I believe it was last year. We had a talk over DMs on Twitter, and he was such a nice and cool dude, and he did remember this project that we started on. So what was even Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered? Which should have been called Final Fantasy Warriors Remade. Something you might not know is that there are actually two versions of the original Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered. We are going to cover both, but the first one we're going to talk about is the one that me and The64thGamer originally started on together, which is also the version you have probably not seen too much of before. Now, from what I can remember, when we started this original Final Fantasy Warriors Remastered, our only plan was to remake the first game, and that was all I personally wanted. Final Fantasy Warriors with proper 3D graphics, with the potential of animating movements in the environment, well, I was all for it, and that was all I was focused on. That was almost all I cared about. Therefore, The64thGamer, who didn't have that much insight into the story of Final Fantasy Warriors, was given quite a lot of creative freedom by me. In fact, everything you'll soon see was basically his work. At least, almost everything. The character design, the office design, the animations, everything that has to do with the 3D, it was all his work. Everything that was mine in this scrap project is basically the original game's vision, the coding, and some of the heads-up display graphics, as well as the gathering of sound effects, and the final main thing that was made by me in this game is the main music theme, which you will recognize soon when you hear it. What this resulted in was some hilarious results in the form of a little bit of a clash between his own vision of what a Final Fantasy Warriors game was, which in retrospect is just super interesting and fun, and what I made originally. There were no disagreements or clashing or anything of the sorts between me and him. What happened was simply that I didn't communicate what I envisioned, and thus he made tons of assets and decisions that fit with his personal style and his personal vision of the game. So, we're gonna take a look at all of that right now. Let's first go through some interesting renders that The64thGamer made for the game. The first one is Wario standing in a foggy yellow rim light, holding his hand up in a gesture. There's not really much to this. It was probably mostly to show off how lighting could look in this game, and of course, I was all for it. The next one shows the entire ensemble planned for this game. Wario, Waluigi, Mario, Luigi, and a red Yoshi. And here is another version of it with purple lighting and stronger contrasts. The red Yoshi, which again was an idea from the 64th Gamer, is something I actually repurposed later on, much later on in fact, in 5 shows at Wario's when designing Virus Yoshi. This image again shows off the lighting possibilities that I was extremely excited about, as it was something I hadn't even dreamt of at the time. But as you can see, there are some interesting design choices here. Mario's eyes were huge eyeballs instead of his usual glowing white ones, and Luigi had a mask, similar to the puppet from Five Nights at Freddy's. I really wish I had the 64th Gamer with me here so I could ask him about these design ideas and the philosophies behind them. I actually really like what he did with Waluigi though, as that design really fit my vision. Tall, thin, spider-like with a huge mouth. It was perfect. You will also notice that Peach is completely absent. Again, this was a result of me giving the creative freedom to the 64th Gamer, where he essentially was the director of this project before it was scrapped. The next image is a closer look at Mario's design, exiting the computer screen, so that was a concept that remained from the original. You also get a closer look at his eyes here, where one pupil is white and the other one is black. In retrospect, I don't think this design fit very well with my personal version of Five Nights at Wario's, as the eyes give me more of either a SpongeBob vibe or something that fits much better to an animatronic, rather than a supernatural being. But it is so interesting to look back at. Here we have a concept render of Yoshi and Mario. There isn't really that much to say here. They're both standing in what seems to be a corner of a hallway, with Yoshi pointing a finger at the camera and Mario being hidden in the shadows in the foreground. We once again have the intense red lighting. This next one is actually really cool, and I believe it comes down to how much I like the design of Waluigi here. Waluigi is so tall here, he has this crooked back as he leans forward, which adds to the immersion of just how tall this Waluigi is. This design is definitely the most uncanny of them all in my opinion, and my personal favorite of this game's character designs. Then we have one of Masked Luigi, the strangest of the designs. Most likely, the 64th Gamer probably had a vision of having Luigi function similar to the puppet, both in gameplay as well as in the story. A mysterious, outcast character that was different from the rest, and perhaps he wasn't even meant to be human to begin with. Perhaps the idea here was that this was indeed an animatronic of some sort, making him stand out completely to the rest of the cast. Who knows? Finally, we have something very strange that I didn't remember before opening up the game files. In the animation files of the camera screens, there is a render of Phantom Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, standing in one of the rooms of the factory. In the animation files, it is simply called Cam 5 Rare. This, alongside elements like Masked Luigi, tells me that the 64th Gamer most likely had a vision of making this game much more related to Five Nights at Freddy's than I was, with many references and possibly even having the game take place in the same universe as FNAF. We are going to take a look at a full night of gameplay soon that I will play for you, but before we do that, I want to talk a bit about some images from in-game, because there are some very interesting pieces of Five Nights at Wario's history in here that most of you probably didn't know about. First of all, this is the welcome image that was shown before the title screen appeared. It shows me on the right, here represented as a white-colored Wario, which was my avatar before, taken from Wario's design in Wario Land 3. On the left is the icon that represented the 64th Gamer, and in the middle, yep, that is Luigi Kid Gaming, who was supposed to be the phone guy of this game, replacing me as James, a character that, at the time, simply didn't have a name yet. It was simply Phone Guy. I also interestingly found the Photoshop file for the game's logo, as you can see right here. Next, I'm sure many of you will recognize this. If you have played Five Nights at Wario's 4, you will know that these 3 images are used in the title screen for Five Nights at Wario's 4. So many of you are probably putting two and two together at this very moment, and yes, these images of Wario are originally concept images from this scrapped Five Nights at Wario's Remastered that I repurposed for Five Nights at Wario's 4. And this leads into the original title screen, which you might find interesting. Take a look. As you can see, not only is the title screen's visuals of Five Nights at Wario's 4 originating from this scrap to remaster, but so is Five Nights at Wario's 4's main theme. I composed that music to be used for the remaster of Five Nights at Wario's 1, not for Five Nights at Wario's 4. So while the remaster was scrapped, the title screen and its main music was later repurposed for the 4th game. It's an interesting piece of history that I don't think many people know about. And it's so interesting to see how things come together, because I feel the music theme actually fits much better the tone and atmosphere of the 4th game than it does in Five Nights at Wario's 1. Lastly, there's the original game over image, showing the player inside what appears to be an animatronic suit, with Wario staring at them through the suit's opening. This again points to the idea that it seems like the 64th Gamer was leaning much more into the style and the world of Five Nights at Freddy's than what I did. It is very interesting to see. And before I go into full night of gameplay, here are some other gameplay images, including the original office, as well as several camera screens with Wario in them. This is clearly a different style to the original Final Fantasy Wario's, and it had some very interesting potential. The two jump scares for Wario are honestly quite great, and I think the office and the camera screens all look nice with a consistent style and quality. The heads-up display was clearly still work in progress, as you might have guessed, and so were some of the still graphics, like Wario being at the door on the left, which looked very stretched and flat at this stage. The game did have one major issue, however. The idea of being able to fake a 3D environment without the game actually being a rendered 3D world was very exciting for me. It was something I could only dream of, and now the possibilities were there. Not only this, but due to the custom-made rooms, the game's resolution could now be much higher, as I was not restricted to the image resolution of the stock photos I found. So the game's resolution was cranked up to a full HD, 1920 by 1080p. And to simulate this 3D world, I asked the 64thGamer to render out animations where movement happens in this 3D space. Most notably the movement into the camera monitor. This way the game was still fully 2D, but with frame-by-frame image animations of a 3D environment, all in full HD resolution. And what did this result in? A massive file size for the game that takes a long time to load up. Even on my modern powerful computer, it took almost half a minute to load up the night sequence the first time. The game only has a few scenes, or frames as they are called in ClickTeam. These include the title screen, some transition scenes like a night introduction and the game over screen, and of course the main night gameplay, with camera screens only featuring Wario and no other characters yet. And this alone has given me a game file size of almost 1.5 gigabytes. It is safe to say that this was not very optimized, and not a very clever way of making a high-resolution, 3D-like game like this. I don't remember when, how, or why, but the game was eventually left behind. I don't remember if me and the 64thGamer came to that conclusion in our conversations. I don't think so. I don't think there was a talk where we slowly realized the game's flaws and potential future problems, and then came to the choice of cancelling the game. Instead, if my memory serves me right, I think we both simply slowly slipped further and further away from the project until it naturally came to a permanent halt. And since that day, I never picked up the project again. However, the project was not completely dead just yet. This is where my knowledge fades quite a bit, but there was actually a second version of Five Nights at Wario's Remastered. I believe I have this faint memory where the 64thGamer told me that he would continue the project himself, which I was more than happy with, as I personally didn't feel our visions matched and I didn't feel like continuing the project. But I was super happy that he would continue this himself and be free to make his vision of Five Nights at Wario's come to life. And I was excited. And I believe that this is the version of Five Nights at Wario's Remastered that most of you might be familiar with. I believe this is the version that most of you have seen. This is a version I have no access to, because he was the one who made this one. It's the version you have seen gameplay of on YouTube, and there's quite a lot of differences compared to our original version. This version has a different title screen, with a new Wario render, as well as a new main menu music, and even an intro image of a newspaper article similar to that of Five Nights at Freddy's. But interestingly, when comparing the gameplay videos of Epic Tage games, there's a different newspaper article in both videos, indicating that there probably was an update put out by the 64thGamer at one point, which changed the newspaper intro. The resolution of the game was also much smaller than our original version, most likely to reduce the file size and to make the game run better. Luigi Kid had also properly been implemented as the phone guy here.
Hello? Hello! Welcome to a new job at the factory.
There's a jump scare outside of the office door that is new, and it teases Dementio at the end as well. The cameras look different and have a black and white filter added to them, and the camera heads-up display is also new. There's also 8-bit minigames / cutscenes added, and there's even an extra menu. The 64th Gamer had also probably made jump scares for more characters than just Wario. Unfortunately, at this point, it seems his version of the remaster on GameJolt is deleted, and he's apparently now gone from Twitter as well. But he does have a YouTube channel where he continues to post his work to this day, which is amazing to see. Chances are that his original version of the remaster is gone forever, lost in some old hard drive that no longer exists. However, if you guys want, I would love to send him an email and see if he would be willing to join me in a conversation, a podcast-like conversation, where we talk about this scrapped project together. If that is something you would like us to do, then definitely let me know in the comments and with a like on the video, as that will show both me and him how much you guys want that to happen. If this video gets enough comments that are positive to it, I will shoot him an email and ask if this is of interest to him. This has been a brief look at the old, scrapped Five Nights at Wario's Remastered, a product of its time that was doomed to not go anywhere. This was truly fun to find again, and it's been tons of fun to show you all what I have left of this forgotten game. A like rating is always appreciated if you enjoy this video, and if you want more from me, including game development stuff, showcasing community-made stuff, and me talking about games and media that I enjoy in general, then subscribe to see more content from me. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.